So the Hurricanes draft 10 new players. Sebastian Aho's contract extension appears to be nearing completion, and a lot in the rumor mill about Erik Karlsson being a Hurricane. All that and a whole lot more on the very first ever episode of Warning Take Weekly. So some breaking news here as I'm recording the first ever episode of Warning Take Weekly, and this is good news. Hurricanes appear to be extending Jesper Fast, 2-year deal, around $2.4 million AAV. That's a good deal for him, I think, because dude's a true Swiss Army knife in the forward core. You can put him just about anywhere. If you got an injury, he can usually take that spot. If a line goes a little bit stagnant, you need to mix it up. You can take one guy out of one wing and put him in the other. So yeah, I think that this is a good deal. The core of this team needs to stay together, and Quickie, albeit quietly, he's been very useful to the Hurricanes over the last few years, but he definitely made some noise in the playoffs with the 2 overtime winners that he had. So this is an excellent deal, and the term is perfect. So they're really, Waddell and Dundon and all them guys, and Tulsky and all them, they're really cooking right now. They're doing a great job. All right, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good 4th of July weekend so far and everything. Sorry I haven't been making any videos. Day job had me hung up, but I'm planning on putting a lot of stuff out this weekend. So we have a whole lot to talk about. There's been a lot going on in the world of hockey, a lot going on in the world of the Hurricanes, and we've got some stuff to cover outside of the Hurricanes as well, a little bit of gear talk and all that type of stuff. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what the show is going to be covering. So my plan is to try and have the show every Friday. I don't think it's going to happen every single week of the year, but I'm going to try. If I can't have it on Friday, I'll try to have it on Thursday or Saturday alternatively and play catch up from there and everything like that. If I do nothing else with this show, I would like for it to be used to give comment replies weekly. This one's going to be a lot more audio friendly. I'm planning on trying to upload it on Spotify as well. Ideally, I would like to have it out on all digital platforms, but we'll probably just start off with something like Spotify and see what else I can get from there. I've never uploaded on anything other than YouTube, and I'm still relatively new at that. So we're going to do comment replies first today, and I'm going to try and make that the first and foremost thing because it actually helps give me content for the weekly show and everything like that. So we've only got 3 of them today. Like I said, I haven't been making a bunch of stuff this week, but we're going to go ahead and get to these, and then we'll get into some other news. All right, so the first comment here is from Steve Howard 677. He says, teams looking for defense like Pesce have to give something, even overpay to get better defensively. Otherwise, you see with the Oilers, you can score a ton, but you give up a ton. Defense wins championships. I agree. So when it comes to Pesce, we kind of hold all the cards considering he's still got another year left on the contract anyway. But the thing about it is, that's one thing that you've pointed out here that a lot of people overlook. The Hurricanes have been to the conference finals twice in the last 5 seasons. And teams with these super high-powered offenses but are lacking defensively, Edmonton, as you stated here, is a great example. Toronto is a great example. They haven't been past the second round. Toronto made it to the second round this year, and they only won 1 game. So the last thing the Hurricanes need to do is compromise how good they are defensively, because that will be a step backwards for them. They're basically... They've got all the ingredients in the pot they need. They just need to add a little spice, a little kick, a little hot sauce, something like that up front, and I think that will get them the rest of the way. Now, if they could really improve up front, that would be helpful, because one of the things I'm going to talk about later in the show is there's been a couple of notable players that have been traded into the Metropolitan Division, most notably Tyler Toffoli. That was someone I was kind of hoping that the Hurricanes were going to go out and get, but personally, I would like more for the Hurricanes to go get Elias Lindholm over Tyler Toffoli. I think that filling the hole at 2C is going to solve a lot of problems. Additionally, I am going to talk about some of the other potential solutions for the Hurricanes at the second-line center position. And, one luxury the Hurricanes have, if they do move Pesce, they have Chatfield to replace him with, and Chatfield wouldn't be able to command nearly as much money as Pesce, in my opinion. That being said, like I said in previous videos, for those who haven't seen it, I was very impressed with Jalen Chatfield. As far as who impressed me the most, wow, I knew that this kid was good, but he exceeded my expectations. When the Hurricanes went and got Jalen Chatfield in free agency, I was like, that is about the best bottom pair right-handed defenseman you could ask for. And then his first full-time season with the Hurricanes this year, he was definitely playing like someone who could be a top 4 guy on almost any other team. So I would imagine that if stuff with Pesce falls through, Chatfield, they could probably extend him and get him on a pretty good deal. He's a little bit younger. I think that you wouldn't really have to pay him more than probably $5 million a season, and you could give him a 5 or a 6 year term. That being said, considering how much of a breakout season that Chatty had this season, he can add a prove it season onto everything that he's already proven. So I think that that's something to consider on his part. But if they could lock him up in the event that they can't keep Pesci, I would say that that would be a lot easier to do. I think at that point the ball would be more in Chatty's court, just out of the simple fact of, hey, give me one more season and I'll show you what I really got. Another thing with Jalen Chatfield, him being a late bloomer, nobody really knows how much more he has to give, and I think that there's a lot more there. And, you know, this kid is a really good story. He was undrafted. He made his way up through the American League, and he played with the Utica Comets before coming over to the Hurricanes. And I think that he's one of those guys that might have never really got looked at anywhere else because he's so defense-oriented, even though he's starting to show a little bit of the offensive game now. But I would hate to see Pesci go. I really would. Brett Pesci is probably one of my top 10 favorite defensemen of all time. Pesci's name I actually plan on going on my 25th anniversary sweater when I get it, but not just strictly because of him. He wears 22, and two of my other favorite players who wore that sweater back in the day were Sean Hill and Mike Commodore, so it would have like a it would have like a triple meaning to me. Steve, thank you very much for the comment. I hope to hear some more from you soon. Right, and then our next one here is from Steven Coco 4119, it appears to say. This is in regards to the video I made about Alex Nikishin. Can't wait to see his highlights. We need his physical style. Boom. Yes, I absolutely agree. And the only hang-up that I have right now is deciding how exactly I'm going to execute the highlight package video. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do it reaction video style, so that way I can have a better chance of avoiding any sort of copyright claim issues or anything like that. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to stop it like every 5 seconds instead of just doing what I wanted to do, which was to let it play and maybe throw some voiceover commentary on it. That's what I would rather do. That video will also be kind of a test bed to see how I'm going to do any KHL-related footage in the future. Thank you very much for the comment. I'm really looking forward to making that video. I just got to make sure I do it in a way that doesn't stop me from being able to make videos in the future. I would love for this channel to get monetized so that I could buy some better equipment for it. So that's my biggest concern with making that video at the moment, because there's plenty of material out there for it. I've even been doing Google Translate based searches into the YouTube search tab to try and find some more video of him. I'm finding plenty of what he does offensively. I'm finding plenty of his hits. I'm trying to find some stuff in regards to how well he plays defense, like if I could find a full game somewhere to watch where I could just maybe screen cap some snippets of, you know, how good his gap and how good his poke checking is. But you'll see out of him, I think you're going to see literally a complete defenseman, someone who is almost 100% good on both sides of the puck. Like, there's no... His game might lean to the offensive side a little bit, but so little that it doesn't make a whole lot of a difference in my opinion. But that's just what I've seen so far of it. I just need to get some more of that recorded in some sort of way, make sure I don't break any copyright rules, and I'll have it out here. Steven, thank you very much for the comment. I hope to hear more from you. Alright, so at that Edmund guy, that's a cool name, it reminds me of Joel Edmondson. That Edmund guy says, you already know that the Canes are trading down for more assets unless a dude really slips to them in the first round. And that's exactly what happened. I personally did not expect Bradley Nadeau to be there at 30. And that wasn't because I did my own mock draft. I read a whole bunch of mock drafts, and he was one of the guys that did have some commonality there. But Bob McKenzie in his final draft show absolutely nailed it. And 30th overall pick happened to be Bradley Nadeau. And when I get to the draft portion of this video, they did in fact trade down and get 2 more picks at one point. And I also looked at some stuff in regards to Waddell talking about the draft philosophy of the Hurricanes and everything like that, and I can see a lot of the same modeling that went into the Red Wings having that sustained 25 years straight of making the playoffs going into what the Hurricanes are currently doing now. But I'm going to talk about that later. Edmund Guy, thank you very much for the comment. Hope to see you keep coming back and saying some more stuff. Really appreciate it. So that does it for the comments for the week. And now we've got some good news right here. So according to Colin Madwell here, he heard on the Jeff Merrick said on the 32 Thoughts podcast, which I did go back and listen to, and I heard it myself, said on the 32 Thoughts that Sebastian Aho's extension is expected to be announced on or shortly after July 1st. As a reminder, players with a year left on their deal can't officially agree to terms until after the 1st. So that's going to tie into something else I'm going to talk about probably in the next topic here. But yeah, I kind of figured that this wasn't going to be a problem. I always told people, I'm like, it's a 99% chance that Aho's going to get extended and there's not going to be, you know, too much malarkey around it. And the reason why I figured that it wasn't becoming an issue, nobody was using the media for leverage at all with this, like you hadn't heard a thing. So my initial estimate was that he was going to get 10 million AAV, and that anything below that is a steal. Every penny below 10 million for Sebastian Aho is a steal. The cap's going up, and he's right at that point in his career. He's at that perfect place where youth and experience intersect with each other, and I think that he's going to have the best seasons of his career coming up. According to this from Hurricanes Report, I don't know how verifiable this is, but if this is true, this is great. Hurricanes Report says Carolina and Sebastian Aho are getting closer to completing a max-term extension. The sense is this will get done this weekend when they are eligible to do so, and is expected to come in somewhere around the 9.5 million average annual value range. That is a good deal. When it comes to pure 200-foot centers who have a little bit of everything, Sebastian Aho is one of, if not the best one in the game. And, you know, when I start that analytical series on him, you know, he's one of those guys that, you know, yeah, he's never had a 100-point season. He probably never will, in my opinion, at least not as long as either A, he's with the Hurricanes, or B, he's being utilized in a system the way that Rod Brindamore does so. But he's a point-per-game player. He's incredible defensively. The fact that he's not been in Selke consideration yet is still kind of, you know, baffling to me. Not so much this season because he missed some time and he was kind of slow when he did come back. It took him a little bit to get going from that injury that he had. But as far as someone who you can put out there and he's an all-situation center, it doesn't get a whole lot better than it does with Fishy. And for those of you that are listening on audio here, behind me I've got a Canes away sweater over there. And that's actually one of the Made in Canada Pro Stock ones, which I'm going to do a video covering that too. But that's a Made in Canada Pro Stock one. The only reason I don't have Aho's name on a sweater yet is I was waiting until I got my hands on one of those. Because the Made in Canada ones, the Pro Stock ones that the players actually wear when they're playing, are very different from like the ones that you buy from the Eye or that you buy from Carolina Pro Shop or from Fanatics and everything like that. The ones that say that they're authentic and have the fight straps in them, they're actually very different. So his name's going to be going on that one. I'm going to send it off to EPS sometime in the coming days. But that's how big of a fan I am of Sebastian Aho. I didn't want to get a Aho sweater until either I had I wanted to have a Made in Canada one, and additionally I didn't want to get his name on the current alternate because so many people have that one, and I'm not hating on that. I just wanted something different. So here in other extension news, we have David Pagnotta from the fourth period. I'm just going to tell you guys in advance before I read this. This is wrong. Some of it is anyway. He says, supposedly the Canes are going to sign or trade Brett Pesce by July 1st. They better hurry. Nothing cooking right now on either front. He's going into the last year of his deal and has a 15-team no-trade list. Some chatter, Nashville, Vancouver, and Toronto among the teams who poked on him. Okay, so some of this is just outright false. So the Hurricanes are not in that much of a hurry to trade Pesce by July 1st because, as he stated in the suite, he's got another season. Additionally, he's in the same situation as Aho, where he cannot sign an extension officially until the 1st of July. And then the next thing here is just completely false. He says that Pesce has a 15-team no-trade list. That's just outright not true. I went and double-checked Cap Friendly and everything. He does not have any sort of no-trade or no-movement clause in his contract. So some of these destinations make sense for him. Out of the 3 destinations listed here, Nashville is kind of in rebuild mode. I don't think that they would grab someone like him. Pesce is one of those guys that makes a team, almost any team in the National Hockey League, better right off the hop, because a steady right-handed defenseman like him that is a first-pair guy on a lot of teams and at a minimum a second-pair guy league-wide is definitely going to draw a lot of interest, but he's going to draw interest from teams that are trying to compete right now. Vancouver, I could sort of see that. Anything involving Brett Pesce going to Vancouver, I would like to think someone along the lines of Andrei Kuzmenko or Brock Besser would be coming back in the return. I'd be a little bit wary of Besser just because of the injury history. I like Brock Besser as a player. He can score. He's an excellent playmaker. He's really good on clean entries, which Carolina lacks on because it's dump and chase with them a lot of the time, a lot more than it should be in my opinion. Toronto definitely makes sense as a team that's going to try to get Pesce. I heard that they tried to get him before back when back right after Dubas took over. Apparently Nylander was in the discussion, but I wouldn't give up Pesce for anybody other than a roster player who will score at least 30 to 35, maybe even 40 goals for the Canes. So the other two destinations make a little bit of sense, but the last that I heard from LeBrun, and I talked about it on, one of my other videos, is that, it was looking more like that he was going to get signed and everything. If it's in the 6.5 million 6-year range, I know that would be pushing it for Pesce and what the Hurricanes tend to hand out with contracts and everything like that. But I don't think that this is accurate. The simple fact that he said that, Pesce has a 15-team no-trade clause, that's just not accurate, and it's not like if they don't sign or trade him on July 1st that we lose him completely. It's nothing like that. Like I said, I'm still expecting Pesce to stay. If he doesn't, as I was saying in the comment replies, Chatty can do his job if he needs to, and Chatty would come in at a little bit less money just because he's not been playing as long. Even though he had an absolutely amazing season, I think he's going to do one more season to really prove what he's worth so that he can really get the bag. Alright, so this was kind of a foregone conclusion. I think we all kind of already knew that Gostisbehere was going to test the free agent market, and I don't think the Hurricanes are going to bring him back. They just don't really have room for him unless he's going to take less money and play on the bottom pair, which he's not going to. So we're going to talk about this real quick, and then we're going to shift gears to what's holding up the Tony DeAngelo trade and some stuff going around about the Hurricanes potentially looking to acquire Erik Karlsson. So according to Pierre LeBrun here, he tweets that agent Mark Levine says his client Shane Gostisbehere will not be re-signing with Carolina and will be a UFA this coming Saturday. Okay, yeah. I think we kind of already knew that. Gostisbehere was serviceable while he was here, but when we have the possibility of Nikishin getting over here early, we still have Shea on the roster and everything like that, and Gostisbehere has earned a raise that Carolina is not going to give him, and he's probably not going to play bottom pair. He would probably be a second pair guy on a lot of other teams, and he's definitely got some power play quarterback ability and everything like that. But as far as on the Hurricanes blue line, I didn't think that they planned on trying to keep him long term. So this is pretty well known. So that does tie into the next thing that we're going to talk about here, which is Tony DeAngelo. So I've got a tweet right here from a guy who's one of the Philly sports reporters, Anthony Sanfilippo. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. So Pierre LeBrun, he's talking about the snag here that Tony DeAngelo's trade allegedly hit and that the snag has been ironed out. Now, here's some stuff that I'd read about it before and I was trying to find it again, but apparently the league was going to talk to both the Hurricanes and the Flyers during the draft at Nashville about it, and what they were concerned with is that there was cap circumvention going on here. And what they were saying is you can't trade a player back to a team within a year and retain salary and all that type of stuff. But the Hurricanes and the Flyers both made arguments against it, that one, it was not the Hurricanes that signed Tony DeAngelo to that contract, it was the Flyers. The Hurricanes traded his rights to the Flyers for the picks that they got in return, and they signed him to the 2-year, $10 million contract with an average annual value of $5 million. And what I'm guessing is going to happen here is, just to avoid any form of worrying about any penalties for cap circumvention or anything like that, this trade will probably still happen, and I would imagine it would happen on July 8th or later, because that was the day that Tony DeAngelo signed the contract with the Flyers after he was moved by the Hurricanes. So I still think that trade happens. They're just waiting for the formalities and the bureaucracy to get out of the way. I do find it kind of weird the league is this worried about cap circumvention in a situation like this where it's kind of inconsequential. It's the same end result whether you make that trade now or you make it on July 8th. It seems like it's going to be all the same, but Nikita Kucherov got to do what he did in 2021, but that's a completely different discussion. I'm not hating on Tampa for doing that. That was genius. That shortened season was the perfect time to do that. So following up on that now. So we know that Gostisbehere is gone. And that's part of the philosophy of bringing Tony DeAngelo back in, even though he's a righty and not a lefty. Gostisbehere's a lefty, Tony DeAngelo's a righty. Now, to discuss another righty who's a whole lot more prolific is Erik Karlsson. So, Seattle, Toronto, and Carolina, among several teams who have chatted with San Jose about Erik Karlsson, says Pierre LeBrun on Twitter. Here's where I kind of have a bit of a problem with that. The Tony DeAngelo, not a problem with the idea of getting Erik Karlsson, but why I think it's unrealistic. With Tony DeAngelo, he will not be filling the same role that he did with the Hurricanes last time 5-on-5. He's not going to be paired with Slavin. He's going to be a bottom pair guy that will not be spending most of his time playing against the top players of the league, and he'll be used on the power play a bunch, which is something he's excellent at, is quarterbacking a power play. I think that's the strongest part of his game. If he had half the gap control that he has, the capability to walk the blue line and distribute the puck and shoot from the point, he'd be one of the best defensemen in the league, without a doubt. Plus, a lot of times teams will do this just for the sake of, psychological warfare, causing some bidding wars so that other teams drive up, their returns and everything like that. It's a whole complex web of stuff, but I don't see Erik Karlsson coming in. No. A lot of the more reasonable reservations people have with Tony DeAngelo coming back is that he gets burned a lot. He is a bit of a traffic cone sometimes. But Erik Karlsson is got his defensive deficiencies as well, and you'd have to pay him a lot more money. So the idea of having a bottom pair with two right-handed guys on it makes a little bit more sense. They're going to see the ice less and everything like that. Having Erik Karlsson somewhere in our defense doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Don't see this happening unless San Jose retains 50% of his salary, which would bring his cap hit down to 5.5. But at that point, I think that it would be more advantageous to just pay Pesce, because Erik Karlsson is not going to play bottom pair minutes, and honestly, he's not going to play second pair minutes either, probably. And I would like to think the Hurricanes just aren't going to up and trade Bernsey after everything he did for the team this season. So, and I would argue that Bernsey's a little bit better, actually I would say significantly better defensively than Erik Karlsson is. Erik Karlsson's strengths are his ability to move the puck. He's like oil and water and completely different from a defenseman of, say, Jacob Slavin's caliber, where they contribute to the team in different ways. But I have a video that I'm going to make later that I'm hopefully going to have out later today that kind of talks about the whole Norris Trophy criteria and everything and how I think it's kind of broken. And one of the things that I'm going to say here, and then I'm going to preface that video with as well, that is not an attack on Erik Karlsson as a player. That is not an attack on how the media covered him winning the Norris Trophy. It's the criteria of the Norris Trophy and who votes for it and why that I have some questions about. Personally, I do not see Erik Karlsson fitting in on this team anywhere unless Pesce and Shea are both moved, and even then you still have, a gap to fill on the left side unless Erik Karlsson's going to play his offside, and if that happens, the goals against on the Hurricanes are ultimately going to go up. If the Hurricanes can go to the free agent market as far as the forwards go, I would like for them to, and this is not going to be popular opinion because nobody likes him, and that's part of the reason why I like him, I think that they should take a really good look at Garnett Hathaway. He's big, he's physical, and he irritates people. He'll fight. You don't bring him in to set the world on fire offensively. You don't bring him in to, score a bunch of goals or get a bunch of assists. You bring him in to protect your star players and to draw penalties, irritate guys, go out there and, do the greasy stuff. It would definitely mitigate some of the circumstances that the Matthew Tkachuk's and Radko Gudises of the world bring about. So I think that they should definitely give him a look. He wouldn't break the bank. All right, and so some other trade news. Two pretty notable players came into the Metropolitan Division in the last couple of days. The New Jersey Devils traded Igor Sharangovich and a third-round pick to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Tyler Toffoli. Tyler Toffoli was someone I wanted the Hurricanes to get. And not only did they not get him, they're going to have to play against him, probably in the playoffs too. I'm kind of disappointed in that regard, but I would like to think the front office has something cooking, because when they traded DeAngelo, I was like, oh, we're going to regret that, and then they went out and got Bernsey, and I didn't even know he was on the market or even a trade target for the Hurricanes, and that worked out really well. So I think that they're probably still looking at somebody. Additionally, Riley Smith is now playing for the Penguins. The Penguins are going to be one of those teams that I think will be fighting for a wild card spot. At the absolute most, they'll be fighting for third place in the Metropolitan Division. The Metro is going to have a lot of teams competing for playoff spots. It's, like I said, the only one I think that you can just kind of go ahead and count out, and that it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to not have a good season, is the Flyers. Everybody else, though, especially like Columbus, like I said, last season, I think they were ready to take another step, and injuries was what did them in more than anything. So I'm waiting to see what the Hurricanes do on the trade market. I'm still expecting them to make some sort of move. And like I said, I think right now prioritizing getting a second-line center would fit in better with the Hurricanes' philosophy of defense first and everything like that. I'm still hoping for Elias Lindholm coming back. As far as adding some scoring goes, I think the Hurricanes are going to be fine during the regular season, but they're going to need to add something before the postseason comes. So if we don't see a scoring winger added during this offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if you get one right before the trade deadline. If we could have maybe a Nino Niederreiter situation where we get someone in January so they have time to fit in and we really know what we're doing when the trade deadline comes, that would be really helpful too. But this is just to reinforce the Metropolitan Division is really good, and it just got a little bit better with these two players. So now the next thing that I want to cover here is there's not a whole lot of free agents out there that would be absolutely game-changing for the Hurricanes. However, I think that there's a few worth looking at for the sake of adding a little bit of depth scoring and some sandpaper and all that type of stuff. It just came out today that Tyler Bertuzzi will not be staying with the Bruins. It looks like he's going to test free agency. The biggest issue with Tyler Bertuzzi is he's going to take advantage of the market, as he should. You know, get all the money you can. But some team out there is going to hand him a little bit more than what he should probably make just because of how, depleted the free agent market is. And on top of that, he has a pretty extensive injury history, and it would be a pretty big gamble to sign him to a deal that he would take that would probably be in the, $7 million, 7-year range. I would like to have Tyler Bertuzzi, but I don't think the Hurricanes are going to spend the money on him, especially not with Jordo just getting renewed. Quickie just got renewed today. Fishy's going to be renewed on the 1st, it looks like, and Pesci's still pending. And we have a hard time acquiring a center to fill the role that we need filled at the second-line center or 1A, 1B center, however you want to look at it. There is one option there, but I think that he's going to want a little bit more money in term than a lot of teams would be willing to, or than the Hurricanes would be willing to give him, and that would be Ryan O'Reilly. You can't go out and get someone like Elias Lindholm. Ryan O'Reilly would be a good stopgap thing, but you'd have to get him to sign a short-term deal with not too much money. He's a little bit late in his career to sign him to anything of long-term. I would like to keep that under 2, maybe 3 seasons if the Hurricanes were to go get him. And that being said, Ryan O'Reilly is one of my favorite non-Hurricanes, but it's not someone you want to make a long-term investment in. I think the Hurricanes actually have a couple of solutions in-house as far as fixing the second-line center position. One of them being, we haven't seen all of Jesperi Kotkaniemi yet, in my opinion. I think that he's got another gear. If he starts putting up 70 points a season, people are really going to understand how good he actually is. Defensively, KK is very competent. You'll remember probably at the first half of the season, he was with Svechnikov and Teravainen, and that line worked out really well. Svechnikov in particular was putting up a decent amount of points, and Kotkaniemi had a pretty good hand in that playmaking-wise, but more than anything, he was doing good stuff defensively. He was getting back so that guys like Svechnikov could set up and get ready to fly the zone and everything like that. He reloaded a lot at the blue line in the offensive zone just so that, guys like Svechnikov and Teravainen could do work down low, and he was really good at covering for pinching defensemen and all that type of stuff. So I think that the only thing that it's separating Kotkaniemi from being a legitimate second-line center, even if it's on the lower end of all the second-line centers in the league, I think the only thing that's really separating him from that is scoring. So if he starts putting up goals and putting up more assists and everything like that, I think the discussion about him being a quote-unquote bust is going to be over. We also have to remember that Jesperi Kotkaniemi was drafted significantly higher than anyone expected him to be. Additionally, Martin Necas has been playing wing pretty much the entire time he's been with the Hurricanes. He even stated before he signed his previous contract extension that he would like to go back to playing the center ice position, and he has played center everywhere except with the Hurricanes. When he was playing with the Checkers, he played center a lot of the time. When he was playing over in Czech Extraliga, where he won a championship, he was playing center a lot of the time. And someone with his speed, I think that if he's not relegated to having to worry about his half of the ice, if he's, more charged with, hey, chase the puck down, angle off the guy with the puck, be the third defenseman and help out there, and be able to use that amazing skating ability. He's one of the best, if not the best skater in the league. If he uses that ability to use that creativity and make plays and improve on the things he already has. One of the biggest improvements I've noticed that he's made in the last couple of seasons, albeit he still does it sometimes, he doesn't force plays that are there as much as he used to. But what I think Martin Necas's biggest problem is, it's in his head. Probably a good sports psychologist away from being one of the best players in the league. Because you notice at times where it's clutch time and everything like that, hey, we need a goal late, or it's overtime or something like that, he was really showing up for that. I think when he's in situations where he can just turn his brain off, like it's 3-on-3 and he's got all that ice to use and everything like that, he's a lot better. Additionally, Necas is really good in the face-off circle, so him playing center, he would take face-offs even more often than he does now. There's that potential there as well. So I would personally, if we don't acquire a second-line center such as Lindholm, or make a good enough deal for someone like O'Reilly, looking at him there would not be a bad idea. This season, as one thing I think Necas and KK both have in commonality is they're going to get closer to, if not hit their ceiling. Like, this season is going to show you kind of what you're going to get with both of those players, more so Necas than Kotkaniemi. I think that sometime in the next couple of seasons you'll really see what Kotkaniemi is capable of. So that's a couple of in-house solutions to the center problem, but I think that both of those players have a little bit more to give. I think Necas would actually benefit from playing center, and if we don't acquire another center, I would like to see him try it out there. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the draft. Basically just biographic information and what position they play, height, weight, all that type of stuff. I was going to do a part in this video where I was going to break down an article that talked about the Hurricanes draft philosophy, but when I read through it, I figured there's enough material here to where it kind of can stand on its own, or at least it could be included in a video where I'm talking about each one of the guys that got picked here. So I think I'll do a video about each individual player, or at least I'll do a video about the most notable ones like Nadu, and then do one about everybody else, and then do a video regarding the Hurricanes draft philosophy in addition to it, or maybe at the same time. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to break that up yet. That will be after free agency frenzy on July 1st, so don't expect to see that entire video until after, say, probably after 4th of July. I'll probably start working on that one, but for now I just want to give a basic rundown of the draft. Alright, so I won't go into too much detail about each individual player. This is just going to be more about the overall picture from what the Hurricanes were doing in the draft. We already talked a little bit about Bradley Nadu. Additionally, I don't think that you're going to see any of these guys for a while. I think it's going to be at least a couple of seasons before you really see any of them. The first one I would expect that the Hurricanes could potentially see from this haul would be Bradley Nadu. So with the second round pick, 62nd overall, they selected Felix Unger-Sarum, Norwegian, 5'11", 170, playing for Leksand. The next one is Jaden Perron, Canadian, 5'9", 166, playing with the Chicago Steel of the United States Hockey League. They traded the 71st overall pick to get pick 100 and pick 126 from San Jose. With those picks, they took at 100th overall, they took Alexander Rykov, Russia, 6 feet even, 176 pounds, playing for Shelmont. Then at 126th overall, also in the 4th round, they had Stanislav Yarovoy, Russian, 5'11", 190. Then 5th overall, they drafted the only defenseman that they drafted in this draft, which was Charles Alexis Legault, 6'3", 208 pounds, Quinnipiac guy. That could be interesting. I could see him coming to the team long term and maybe having a development pass similar to Slavin and Pesce. I'm really impressed with how well the NCAA develops players, but I'm particularly impressed with how they develop defensemen just after having Pesce, Slavin on the team. It's pretty impressive. And then at 5th, 158th overall, the Hurricanes selected another goalie, Ruslan Kazayev, 6'4", 201 pounds. So I guess they're trying to go for the Vasilevsky, Ben Bishop, Pyotr Kochetkov philosophy with goalies now, is to get ones that are really big and that can move really well and have a lot of lateral movement. And Kochetkov definitely challenges a lot more than I expected him to when he got to come play some games in the NHL. It's very impressive how much of the net he takes away. He's not like Tim Thomas with it, who would come all the way out to the damn blue line at times, it seemed. But he definitely does challenge very hard, and he plays angles very well. His fundamentals are sound. So I think that's what the Hurricanes are going to look for in goalies going forward. Then next, another Russian, Timur Mukhanov, 5'7", 178, so a little bit on the smaller side. Also a forward. Number 6, 190th overall, Michael Emerson is the only American that the Hurricanes drafted in this draft at 6'1", 192, also a Chicago Steel product. So I guess that they really like to look at the Chicago Steel now ever since the Hurricanes got Jacob Slavin from there. And lastly, one more Russian, one more goalie, and pretty big kid, Yegor Velimokin, 6'2", 172, and he was the final pick that the Hurricanes made at 222 overall. So I would like to do a individual video on each of these guys, but I'm prioritizing the next 3 I have prioritized as far as prospects go are Nikishin, Morrow, and now Nadeau. I think will be the next one that I really take a hard look at and everything. So, like I said, don't expect to see any of these guys for a couple of seasons, but I definitely see potential with Nadeau and Sarom more than anybody as far as making it to the league, and I've only really looked at those two. For all I know, all these guys are going to be on the Hurricanes in 5 seasons. I want to get some more information on each of them, watch some video and all that type of stuff before I really start talking about what they might bring to the table. The one guy I know the most about on this list is Bradley Nadeau, and that he's a sniper. He likes to work to the interior of the ice. He's got good hands. More than anything, he's got a really deceptive release. The way he distributes his weight and the way that he positions his hands on the stick. I'm not trying to draw a direct comparison when I say this, but it definitely does have a little bit of an Austin Matthews vibe to me, the way that he shoots. I'm not saying that it's as good as Austin Matthews. There's not many people who shoot a puck as well as Austin Matthews does, but the mechanics of his release do remind me of that. He likes to change the position of his hands on the stick and has this quick, fluid, and deceptive release that it's almost impossible to in any way telegraph. So I think that that's going to be his biggest strength with the Hurricanes. So now we're going to shift gears to some gear talk here. In a very unexpected move, at least I didn't expect it, and I have a reason for that. Connor Bedard, the first overall pick, has signed a deal to represent the brand Sherwood. And this is going to bring them a lot of positive press because Sherwood was a really big brand once upon a time. I remember the very last wooden stick I ever had was Sherwood before I started, using composites around 2011, I want to say. Because that's all there was, and I was like, wow, these things are cool. I can actually sort of shoot a puck now. So the last few first overall picks, I think pretty much every single one of them got scooped up by either CCM or Bauer. For example, Austin Matthews came into the league using Bauer, and now he's a full CCM guy. Connor McDavid has been using CCM exclusively since he's been playing in the NHL. Last time I remember somebody of the first overall pick variety endorsement with anybody other than Bauer or CCM, I believe was Niall Yakupov using Warrior, which was already becoming the 3rd biggest brand. Then you've got some notable guys using other stuff like Mitch Marner uses True. He's under contract with them. Cool thing about using a brand like Warrior is they don't make skates, so you can use whichever skates you want. And skates are, as many of you have always heard, the most important piece of equipment. Sherwood also does not make skates. In addition to that, they do not make helmets. They strictly make gloves, sticks, pads, pants, shin pads. That's it. They don't really tap into anything else as of yet. I don't know if there's plans for them to do that or not. But yeah, I totally didn't see that coming. I was expecting him to end up being a Bauer guy. And overall, I think that it's going to be really good for the gear market to have a player as already as prolific as Connor Bedard rocking one of the smaller brands, a brand that was really big and fell off really bad and now has made a comeback. Because at one point in time, it was looking like Bauer and CCM were basically splitting a monopoly and Warrior was along for the ride. Because the gear market needs a lot more competition in it, maybe start looking at driving some of the prices down. One of the things that's popped up now is alternatives for sticks. I've actually got one of them back there behind me. It's called the All Black Hockey Stick. I'm going to do a video about it one day. The biggest reason I haven't yet is I want to get a couple other comparable brands like ProStockSticks.com, and then there's apparently another one called CHS Custom Hockey Sticks that I might take a look at those, but they're a little bit on the pricey side, so I'm waiting until I have the money. The sticks are the one thing that I just feel like are totally unfairly priced, and especially as easily as they break now, so I definitely want to present alternatives to people who don't want to drop $330 on one at Pure Hockey just to have a good stick. My favorite place to shop for sticks is ProStockHockey.com. So to wrap things up, I want to talk about some of the stuff that I've got planned in the future. For tonight, I would like to hopefully have a video out that's going to be the first of many critical of the current Norris Trophy criteria and voting. And I'm starting off with a video reaction to a highlight reel of Erik Karlsson that was released by Sportsnet to show the best moments of the season. I want to give some analysis, and I want to offer some constructive criticism to how this criteria is conducted. Now, I don't think the Professional Hockey Writers Association is going to change how they do things on my behalf, and they shouldn't, but I just want to put my thoughts out there on the matter. Additionally, I'm going to start working on Bradley Nadeau's player profile, Scott Morrow, Alexander Nikishin in particular. I want to do an extensive deep dive on those guys. We should have a lot of news tomorrow in regards to, the free agency thing and everything like that. So tomorrow I'm hoping to at least release a short recap of that. I've got a bunch of little projects coming up. One of my favorite ones is I don't like the trapezoid rule, and I have friends who are goalies, and we're gonna have like a Zoom call type of thing, so that everybody can discuss the trapezoid rule, because I personally don't like it. I think it's kind of run its course, and I didn't care much for it to begin with, but I want to offer a constructive argument about why I think that it's time for the trapezoid rule to go. So that's going to be it for the first episode of Warning Take Weekly. If you guys enjoyed this, please leave a comment, and I'll be able to review it next week. Subscribe, and there will be a whole lot more stuff coming up here in the near future. Like I said, I'm going to try to post 2 or 3 videos this weekend, hopefully, and I hope you guys have a great 4th of July weekend. Have some fun with your family and friends, get some good stuff to eat, and I will see you next time. I'm looking forward to free agency tomorrow. It's a lot of fun, so y'all take care.